Charles Manson, the rise and fall of Helter Skelter. Charles Manson was born November 12, 1934, to a 16-year-old girl named Kathleen Maddox. While Kathleen was pregnant, she married a guy named William Manson. After several years, they divorced. He was not Charles Manson's biological father. Kathleen just used his last name for her son, Charles Maddox. And Kathleen and her brother robbed a man and was sentenced to prison. Charles was sent to live with an aunt and uncle in West Virginia. In 1942, Kathleen Maddox was released from prison, and her and Charles Manson was reunited. Charles dropped out of school at the age of 9, and at the age of 9, Charles was caught stealing and sentenced to reform school. 3 years later, he was caught again. This time, he was sent to the Gabalt School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana. Just 10 months in his incarceration, Charlie escaped and robbed a grocery store. He stole other items, including a bicycle. He got caught in the act, and he found himself back in confinement. This time, he was sent to an Indiana juvenile center. But just after 2 days, he stole some wire cutters and busted free. This time, Charles stole a car, but at the age of 13, he could hardly see over the steering wheel. He was apprehended within hours of his escape. When he ended up in juvenile court, he was surprised to see his mother. His spirits were dashed when she testified that she would not take him in. The somewhat sympathetic judge sent Charlie to Father Flanagan's Boys Town. After 4 days, he ran away. Charlie committed 3 robberies, but during the 3rd robbery, he was caught. This time, Charlie was sent to Indiana School for Boys in Plainfield. He stayed there 3 years. Over the 3 years that he spent at Plainfield, he escaped no less than 18 times. He was returned every time. In March 1951, his sentence was increased, and he was sentenced to a minimum security institution, National Training for Boys in Washington, D.C. Charlie liked it there, but he had no interest in being rehabilitated. He would do his time and get back to the only life he knew, crime. At the age of 15, Charlie was given a psychiatric assessment. He was found to be aggressive, antisocial, and illiterate. A caseworker reported that the boy was severely emotional traumatized in need of a psychiatric treatment, but also noted he had a higher than normal aptitude for music. On October 24, 1951, Charlie was transferred to the National Bridge Honor Camp in Petersburg, Virginia. Then he was transferred to the Federal Reformatory at Petersburg, Virginia. After 7 months at the Federal Reformatory, Charlie had racked up 8 major violations. Toward the end of 1952, Charlie was sent to a higher security facility. There, to the surprise of everyone, he transformed into a model prisoner. He took lessons in reading and math and began working on the vehicle maintenance department. On January 1st, 1954, he was given a Meritorious Service Award for his scholastic achievements. His application to his study and his apparent change of attitude led to Charlie being paroled on May 18, 1954. 6 months after his release, Charlie married a waitress by the name Rosalie Jean Willis. Shortly thereafter, a son, Charles Manson Jr., was born. Charlie worked at a series of low-income jobs. Also, he made pay by stealing cars. He used one to move his wife and baby to Los Angeles. The car had been taken from Ohio, and the authorities tracked it down. Charlie was charged with a federal crime for taking the car across state line. He received 5 years probation, but when he failed to show up to a subsequent hearing, he was arrested. Charlie married again to a prostitute named Leon Ray Candy Stevens, with whom he had a second son, Charles Lutheran Manson. With his probation revoked, Charlie was sent for 3 years to the prison on Terminal Island in San Pedro, California. In September 1958, Charlie was released on a 5-year parole. He now extended his criminal earning potential by becoming a pimp. He had a 16-year-old girl working for him. Over the next year, he roamed around California and New Mexico, committing crimes and repeatedly coming before the law. In June 1960, he fled to Laredo, Texas, with a California warrant out for his arrest. When one of his girls was arrested for prostitution, he was picked up and returned to Los Angeles to face a 10-year sentence for cashing a forgery treasury check. At the age of 26, he was sent to the U.S. Penitentiary at McNeil Island, Washington. While serving his sentence, he learned to play guitar and became interested in Scientology, and also became obsessed with the Beatles. Charlie had an influence application of his own musical talent, claiming that he would, with the right backing and the training, be even bigger than the Beatles. Charlie became friends with an inmate by the name of Alvin Carpets, the former Public Enemy #1. He was a former member of the infamous Ma Barker gang. He taught Charlie how to play the steel guitar. This further fueled his musical obsession. In 1966, Charlie's prison record noted that he spent most of his free time writing songs, accumulating 80 or 90 of them in a year. Carpets comment on Charlie was a master manipulator of other people. Prison authorities also noted he had a tremendous drive to call attention to himself. In June 1966, Charlie was sent once again to Terminal Island, this time in preparations for early release. When that day arrived on March 21st, 1967, he had spent more than half his 32 years behind bars. He requested that the authorities let him stay in jail, but he was told that he had to leave. With a parenting stare and a gift of the gab, Charlie's wandered into Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco with $35 in his pocket and no plans except for a desire to make it in the music business. Charlie moved into an apartment in Berkeley and made money panhandling. Before long, he had gotten to know a 23-year-old assistant librarian at UC Berkeley named Mary Bruner. He quickly won her over and moved into her apartment. Bruner came under Charlie's spell. He convinced her to widen out the home. Within a few months, there were 18 young women living with them. Charlie introduced Mary and the other girls to drugs, and before long, Mary quit her job and became a devoted follower of Manson. The family was beginning to take shape. With his female entourage and his guitar, Charlie merged perfectly into the hippie culture that was in full bloom in San Francisco. He refined his role as spiritual master, guru, and prophet, using mind control techniques to get his girls to do whatever he wanted. Most of the girls he gathered around came from troubled backgrounds and suffered from insecurities that left them open to Charles' manipulation, as well breaking their inhibition with mind control techniques. He used LSD and amplifiers to control his ever-expanding harem. Charlie and his fathers took to traveling by bus down the California coastline as far as Mexico and Texas. partying and committing more crimes. After 18 months of extended travel, they finally settled in Topanga Canyon near Los Angeles in a two-story house. It was there that Charlie began gathering some male members. First was a teenager named Bobby Beausoleil. Bobby had been staying with his music teacher Gary Hinman. Around that time, Charlie had some of the girls travel to Los Angeles to meet up with a record executive at Universal Studios. Former jail friend Phil Kaufman arranged the meeting. The family was rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous at posh parties in the Hollywood Hills. In late spring of 1968, Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson was driving away from Malibu Beach when he happened to pick up two hitchhikers. The girls were part of the Manson family, and they quickly agreed to go back to his Beverly Hills home with Wilson on Sunset Boulevard. The three made love that afternoon, and then Wilson left for a record session, promising to return later to take up where they left off. When Wilson returned home in the early hours of the following morning, he was surprised to see that a full-scale party was underway. He was greeted in the driveway by a short man with a scraggly beard who approached him, dropped to his knees, and began kissing his feet. The girls who Dennis met early came running out, declaring, "This is the guy we were telling you about. This is Charlie." Wilson was impressed with the sway that Charlie held over the women. Wilson called Charlie the Wizard and began inviting influential showbiz friends to come and meet him. Dennis also allowed Charlie to use anything he wanted, his Ferrari or Rolls Royce, and all the drink and drugs he or his groupies wanted. Eventually, Dennis's manager became fed up with the influence and expense that Manson was having on his client, and Charlie and the girls were ordered out of the mansion. The door to the Hollywood elite lifestyle was slammed shut on the Manson family. Charlie's plan for music career was also shut down. This caused that familiar buildup of jealousy, anger, and rage that would inevitably find expression in violence. And it is also noted that Dennis Wilson did take one of Manson's songs, "Cease to Exist." Dennis reworked the song and put it on the Beach Boys' 1968 album 2020 as "Never Learn Not to Love." Manson was angry about that, and Dennis did not give him credit to Charles Manson, but it has been said he gave Manson $500 for it. But Manson didn't know what for. He also gave him $100,000 worth of stuff. After being kicked out of Dennis' place, Manson moved the family to Spawn Ranch, a former Western movie set. The Manson family would do group LSD trips and have orgies. All the women were open to every man except Lynette Squeaky Fromm. Charles Manson was the only one to sleep with her. Fromm took care of George because he was blind. Charlie would quote the Bible to his family when they were on LSD, and he would imprecate Beatles songs, explaining that the lyrics were directed towards them. He was obsessed with the song Helter Skelter. The song envisioned an apocalypse brought on by a race war of blacks killing whites. The blacks would win, but Manson said they would turn to Manson to lead the new world. On May 18, 1969, Terry Melcher, a producer who Charlie had met through Dennis Wilson, arrived at Spawn Ranch to listen to Charlie and the girls sing. Melcher made promises but never followed through on them. On January 25, 1969, Charlie ordered Bobby Beausoleil and 2 women to the house of Gary Hinman. Manson heard Hinman inherit $20,000, and Manson wanted it. Hinman refused to hand over the money. Charlie was called, and he came to Hinman's and yelled at Hinman. Then Charlie pulled out his sword and cut off his ear. Then, Hinman. Then he was given instructions to get the money or kill Hinman. After 3 days, Bobby Bosley stabbed his former teacher to death. Before leaving, he and the girls wrote the word "political piggy" on the wall, along with a panther paw print to blame the Black Panther movement. Bobby Bosley was arrested for the murder on August 6, 1969, after being caught driving around in Hinman's car. Manson was now ready to get his revenge on Terry Melcher, the record producer who had let him down. On the evening of August 8th, he directed followers Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel to the house where he believed Melcher was living, with instructions to totally destroy everyone in it and make it as gruesome as possible. The house was located at Cielo Drive, but Melcher didn't live there anymore. It was now occupied by famous director Roman Polanski and his beautiful 8-month pregnant wife, actress Sharon Tate. That night, Polanski was in Europe on a film project. His wife was entertaining guests: hairdresser J.C. Brings, screenwriter Wojtek Swarowski, and Coffee Empire heiress Abigail Folger. Arriving at the property around midnight, Watson cut the phone line. Watson thought the gate might be electrified, so he and the girls climbed a brushy embankment to get on the grounds. Just then, a car lights came onto the grounds. Ordering the women to lie down in the bushes, Watson approached the vehicle and leveled his .22 caliber rifle at the driver, 18-year-old Stephen Parent. Watson first slashed him with a knife, and then he shot Stephen 4 times in the chest. Watson then ordered Linda Kasabian to keep watch at the gate. He and the other 2 women made their way to the house. The occupieds were gathered together into the lounge. When Wojtek Swarowski asked who they were, Watson replied, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work." Watson began to tie the heavily pregnant Sharon Tate and J.C. Brings together by their necks with a rope he brought and slung over a beam. When Seabrings protested over the rough handling of Sharon Tate, Watson shot him and then stabbed him 7 times. Meanwhile, Wojtek began struggling with Susan Atkins, who repeatedly stabbed him in the legs and torso. Still, Wojtek managed to get to the front door. Watson rushed him, meeting up with him on the front porch and smashing him in the head with the gun butt before shooting him twice. Abigail Folger had managed to escape out onto the yard. She was traced by Patricia Krenwinkel, who tackled her and then stabbed her to death. The only victim was now Sharon Tate. As she lay on the lounge floor with a rope tied around her neck, she begged to be able to live to have her child, but her pleas were ignored, and Atkins stabbed her repeatedly, including in the abdomen, until both her and her unborn baby were dead. Remembering Manson's instructions to leave a sign on the walls or on the front door, Atkins wrote the word "pig" with Tate's blood. The next day, the family struck again. This time, the victims were Lino and Rosemary LaBianca. Unhappy with the messiness of the previous night killings, this time Charlie went with the group to show them how it is done. Manson orchestrated the tying up of the couple. He then left with orders the couple be killed. When they were finished off by Watson with a chrome-plated bayonet before leaving, words "War" was carved into Lino LaBianca's chest. "Rise" was on the wall. "Death to Pigs" was on the wall. And on the fridge door was "Helter Skelter." But it was spelt wrong. They spelt it Healter, not Helter. It was written in the victim's blood. In October 24, Manson family members, including Charlie, was arrested on charges for arson and grand theft auto. Susan Atkins was also taken into custody, and it was said she began to spill the beans by bragging to a cellmate about killing Sharon Tate, giving detailed account and implicating Charlie as the mastermind. The first piece of physical evidence was a fingerprint of Patricia Kremwinkle that was found on Sharon Tate's bedroom door. Manson and the 4 people who had committed the Tate LaBianca murders were found guilty and sentenced to death. These penalties, however, would never be imposed. In 1972, the California Supreme Court declared the state's death penalty law unconstitutional. Manson's death sentence was committed to life imprisonment. Charlie was on the cover of Life magazine December 19, 1969. And on March 6, 1970, Phil Kaufman released Charles Manson Live, the Love and Terror Cult album, with the same photo on Life magazine. It was recorded June 1967, September 11, 1967, and August 8 through the 9th, 1968. It was released under Awareness Records. Charles Manson was interviewed a lot by people while he was in prison. He was interviewed by Tom Schneider, Nicholas Schreck, Geraldo Rivera, Penny Daniels, and Charlie Rose, to name a few. In 1974, the lead prosecutor wrote the book Helter Skelter. In 1976, the movie Helter Skelter came out. Steve Railsback played Charles Manson, and another movie by the same name of Helter Skelter came out in 2004. This time, Jeremy Davis played Charles Manson. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died. Charles Tex Watson is still alive. He is 79. Susan Atkins died September 24, 2009. Patricia Kremwinkle is 77 and was granted parole and released from prison. Linda Kasabian died the 24th of January 2023. She was never arrested in the murders because she served as lookout and she was the state's witness. Leslie Van Houten, who was at the LaBianca murders, is 75 and she also was granted parole and released from prison. And Bobby Beausoleil is 77 and still incarcerated. There has been a lot of books written by former members of the Manson family. My Life with Charles Manson by Paul Watkins is the best book to read by a former Manson member. Another book that was written is called Cease to Exist, and that was by Tex Watson. That was also known as Will You Die for Me? Member of the Family, My Story of Charles Manson, Life Inside His Cult and the Darkness That Ended the 60s by Diana Lake. Diana Lake in the Manson family was also known as Snake, and she was the youngest member of the Manson family when she joined. And Child of Sane, Child of God by Susan Atkins, and Reflection by Lynette Squeaky Fromm, story of her life with Charles Manson, 1967 to 1969. So Lynette Fromm was another really early member of Charles Manson's family. This has been Eric for True Killer Files. Please like this video and subscribe for more, because I'm going to be doing more podcast style videos like this about psycho killers.